Good morning from a very early morning in Berlin. Today, I'll be making my way to Paris with Luxair via Luxemburg. As per usual, I fly on staff tickets, which in most cases is standby. During the day I traveled, it was the day after the Berlin Marathon, and most flights were full. Luxair was a suitable option for me to fly to Paris and try out a new airline. Today, I'll be flying out of the new airport here in Berlin, Brandenburg Airport. This has been built for some time, but finally opened in 2020. I actually arrived early for once, about 2.5 hours before departure, but check-in wasn't open yet. In theory, it would make sense to open it at a later time for only 76 passengers, but this is actually a big problem at this airport specifically. At the flight info screens, it also shows how busy every security checkpoint is. This is actually a great idea, on paper. This is definitely the longest I've waited for security. There have been some staffing issues with security for quite some time now, which have also been pointed out by multiple times by other flight reviewers and media outlets. From the time I'm writing this script, security staff have gone on strike, not only here, but in other major airports across Germany. I hope the unions can find new agreements with their employers. Besides that, by the time I was through, it was 10 minutes till boarding time. Seeing as my gate was on the other side of the airport, I didn't have time to stop and grab a quick breakfast. Today, my ride on the first leg was on one of Luxair's Q400s. Luxair's current fleet only consists of Q400s and 737 NGs. Boarding started a few minutes after I got to the gate and was done on an open ramp. This Q400 has a standard 76 seats with an actual Euro business section. This is the first time I've seen this on a turboprop. As per Euro business, the adjacent seat is blocked off. This is a standard Q400 seat that is 17 inches wide and has 31 inches of pitch. There's not too much to expect from a Q400 seat, as it's a small seat for a small plane. I was sitting in seat 11F. I wouldn't recommend sitting here as the window is misaligned. We pushed off the gate a few minutes late and taxied out to the runway.
Bitte denken Sie daran, dass dies ein Nichtraucherflug ist und dass auch elektronische.
The one thing that I noticed as we approached the runways was that we were not at the threshold, but instead using one of the high-speed taxiways. We actually only used a fraction of the runway, but a Q400 doesn't need that much runway length to take off and land. This short flight only lasts about 90 minutes. After takeoff, I passed out pretty quick. When I woke up, I was surprised to see a small snack box on my tray table. I actually wasn't expecting any food on this flight, and was pretty hungry considering I didn't have time to grab breakfast. This consisted of a small fruit cup and a chocolate pastry. I was hungry for just about anything at this point. After I ate, a passenger contact tracing form was handed out. This was to keep track to see if someone with COVID was on board the flight, but I'd imagine this would be long gone by now. Soon enough before I even noticed, we were about to land in Luxembourg. I gate checked my carry-on, which is optional. It's mostly dependent on how full the overhead bins are. Luxemburg has a small airport here, but it actually has a really well-designed regional section. I only had a 45-minute connection here, which is suitable for such a small airport. Navigating it is no issue at all. The funny thing is that the same aircraft I flew on will be the same one taking me to Paris. After the grooming process was completed, boarding started. This flight wasn't as full, and I got a better seat with a better engine view.
Veuillez attacher et détacher votre ceinture, comme ceci. Cet appareil dispose de 4 issues de secours signalées par le mot exit ou sortie. Il y a 2 sorties à l'avant.
A quick taxi to the end of the runway, and I'm off to Paris. This flight to Charles de Gaulle is only an hour long. At cruising altitude, another contact tracing form was handed out, along with a small snack of water and mixed nuts with dried cranberries. Going deeper into France, the overcast grew, but you can make out the countryside while approaching into Paris. When I touched down in CDG, we taxied to Terminal 2G, which is pretty far from most of the airport. But luckily enough, there was a small bus waiting for us to take us to Terminal 2F, where the main RER station is. So my point of the video was not so much a review, but some insight into flying with Luxair, as it's a pretty small airline. I wouldn't hesitate to fly on them again. When I got to the baggage claim, it took some time to get my bag. This is actually standard with a lot of regional carriers. There are typically a lot of connecting passengers on these flights, and connecting bags are addressed with first, then the terminating bags. Also, the faraway terminal added to that too. I hope you enjoyed this video of Luxair, and I'll see you in the next one.